I thought I would do a little vlog. So I just got off a call with Dr. Eric Helms. He's now supervising me for the last portion of my undergraduate degree. We're doing a project together where I'll be involved in some of his research, which should be really, really cool. He's doing a bulking study and also another study, which I'll hopefully be involved with as well, which is really cool. And right now what I'm doing is I'm doing a sort of really basic annotated biography, basically looking at the overview of the research for hypertrophy, and I thought I would take you guys along with me. Cool! So I'm also about to record a lecture for the Revive Stronger members site, which is probably one of my favorite educational sites for bodybuilding. They have some really cool presentations on there. So there's some from a lot of my previous podcast guests. So obviously I have those guests on because I think they're smart and I think they're reputable, so I have them on. Such as Jackson Pios, obviously Steve has done one, Pascal as well. They're both really, really smart. Yeah, they have some cool presentations. I'll be presenting on there. I'm doing a presentation on, you probably can't see, it's basically the basics of foot biomechanics. Why do I want to do a presentation on that? One, I did my undergraduate degree in podiatry, and furthermore, I also think it's a topic that's quite misunderstood. People generally tend to not understand the foot. They often tend to act as though it's more important than it is. Then they'll act as though it's dysfunctional and then you need to buy a product to fix it, etc., etc. That's the main angle that I sort of see the utility of this kind of presentation. But yeah, I might actually make this one video in and of itself. So I might make this whole video basically just around this one assignment. I won't be showing my assignment, but I will be talking about some of the studies that I'm reviewing. 2 studies based on sort of the physiology of muscle hypertrophy. I don't know if that one I should talk about on here because it is quite complex, but I think it's quite interesting. I don't know how this video will end up being structured. I'm not sure about this whole making videos thing yet, or I don't know how to do it yet, so I'm likely just going to go into a talk about what the videos are about. So I'm starting on that project that I was telling you guys a little bit about, and I'm reading one of the papers, and there's some really interesting stuff in it. One of the, probably my key quote or key takeaway so far, so it's this paper right here. Stimuli and sensors that indicate skeletal muscle hypertrophy following resistance exercise. So basically the chemical signals that lead to hypertrophy or tell the body, hey, you should produce hypertrophy. And one of my favorite quotes from the whole thing, I think it's probably the biggest takeaway: no matter how we vary resistance exercise variables such as load, repetitions, or sets, it is the hypertrophy stimuli that will induce hypertrophic signal transduction and resultant hypertrophy. So basically, what that means is effectively, yeah, those things are really useful. Like you have to think about how do you manipulate variables over time. But at the end of the day, what we really do care about is inducing a stimulus. End of the day. And it's cool that like within research you get to have quotes like that. Also, some interesting things. Very obvious one, for instance, you have this signaling pathway called mTOR. It's actually been proven that if you block mTOR, hypertrophy will not occur. So that's a pretty good signal that mTOR is pretty important for hypertrophy. Total nerd stuff, doesn't really matter, but just interesting stuff. Also, they noted, and this is probably well known for a lot of you, but it's been very well established in the research that low loads, so loads as low as 30% of 1 rep max, that equates to roughly like, you know, a 30 RM, a 30 rep set or something. So like reps can go very, very high and you can still achieve near maximal hypertrophy. So they did note that there's one key question that remains. I'm reading directly from the paper here. What are initiating hypertrophy stimuli that trigger hypertrophic signal transduction and skeletal muscle fiber hypertrophy in response to blah, blah, blah. So it's like, that seems really abstract and not really useful. However, I think it's quite useful because it's like, okay, just the fact that we don't understand hypertrophy at a physiological level, I think that's exciting. I think that's cool. Like the fact that we don't really understand what's going on. we kind of have a clue. I think Eric's article in Mass, a framework for progression within hypertrophy training, that article I think laid it out quite nicely in an easy to understand way for a lot of people. But yeah, like it's really important to note, like no one can really say that they know exactly what to do. Like, yes, this is just the cellular level, and it kind of doesn't matter, I guess, what is happening on the cellular level. But in a way, it does. We want that stimulus. If we're not getting that stimulus, it's not going to occur. So it's like, let's say if you do a large set progression, so you progress your sets in a large way over the mesocycle, versus you don't do that, or you do that to a very small degree. If they have the same amount of stimulus at the end of the day, who cares? If that's just how you like to train, cool. We just want that stimulus, and whatever way you want to go about getting that stimulus is kind of up to you. There's probably better ways and there's probably worse ways, but at the end of the day, hypertrophy can be found in a variety of different ways and a variety of different methods of programming. So yeah, I thought that was really, really cool. I thought you guys might enjoy hearing about that. My first session of work basically was reading the study, annotating, writing notes about the study, etc., because I guess the whole thing is a literature review. So I'm trying to make sure I understand the studies very, very well. And I'm going to go to a cafe and write the rest of the article. That's where I'm going. So I'm just basically going there. It's another... Did I find you? A fading of a fire at the spot. This is like Main Street. Sweet Burger. Not that big. I mean, it's a Saturday in the middle of the day. People aren't really outside. So what I'm going to show you guys is how I've been going through research studies, or how, for this specific, I guess, video, I've been talking a lot about this specific project that I'm doing because I think it's quite exciting. I think it's interesting, so maybe some other hypertrophy nerds out there will find it interesting. So what I'm also going to show you is how I am, for this specific assignment, going through and reading these studies to try and make sure they actually understand what's going on. So if we go back to this study was probably a lot more intense. Basically, you can think of this study as an updated view of the mechanisms of hypertrophy. Kind of. I guess an updated view or the effects of them in a roundabout way. And basically, you can see again here, I've just gone through and, like, for instance, I've highlighted certain references that I think are interesting around here, around there. And then I've also gone, like, just different facts I've highlighted that are just things that I think are important about the article. Usually I'll basically go through the introduction. I literally just read the whole thing. Sometimes in some articles there's certain periods that are really quite hard to understand. This one didn't have anything too insane, but it is kind of dense the whole way through. And they usually explain most mechanisms within this. For the most part, everything seems to be pretty well explained. The bits I've taken from it and the bits that I've annotated on the most are primarily just the bits that I want to talk about and think about and that I need for my particular assignment. And then, for instance, in this other article, so this is actually by my supervisor, Dr. Eric Helms. He's one of the authors there. Brad Dida, I've interviewed him, and they're all very, very smart people. I've seen a lot of Juma Araki's content as well and heard a lot about Gary Slater. So this is a study about, is an energy surplus required to maximize skeletal muscle hypertrophy associated with resistance training? And basically what I'm doing is I'm just going through and highlighting different things and making sure I understand what's occurring. So for instance here, I'm trying to, just for this assignment in particular, I'm trying to get a good idea around why people justify doing research on hypertrophy. So that's interesting for me, in particular, just for what I want to do. So I'm looking at this from the lens of I want to learn things, but I'm also looking at it from the lens of what questions am I trying to answer with my assignment. So when you're reading research to then use it in your assignment or use it somewhere like that, go through it with that kind of lens in the back of your mind. And obviously, you might not have the nice iPad and the Apple Pencil and all that shit, but it's like, I have a stack of, you wait here. So, maybe you can't do it on your iPad. That's no excuse though. Let's find a study here that I've annotated. And like, this is how you learn, for the most part. This is how you learn, not necessarily how you learn the subject matter of a topic at sort of a basic level, but once you want to sort of truly understand what's occurring, you need to go down and ask specific questions in specific areas that you just don't get. It doesn't intuitively come to you. You question that area, so then you chase it down a little bit of a rabbit hole. So this is what I was doing with diabetes and hypertrophy a while back, and these are all the studies just related to that one topic. So basically, resistance training, hypertrophy, it was around adherence, dose response of sort of how much volume should we use, etc., etc. Pretty interesting stuff. In general, I found hypertrophy training is extremely effective for diabetes, as long as adherence can be achieved. It's pretty safe, very, very effective. But like, there's some really cool things that came out of this, like a dose-response relationship between the health outcomes and hypertrophy volume, or the number of sets. So like, for instance, if you were getting them on sort of 3 sets a week, they wouldn't grow that much. But you know, in the range of where we would normally expect people to grow in terms of volume of sets, this seems to be sort of like a dose-response relationship. Really, really cool. And like, yeah, just a bunch of stuff. And all you need to do is you chuck the study on your desk, get a highlighter, get a pencil, and you just start writing notes. And if you don't understand a word, you Google it, and then you try to figure out what does that word mean. And then by the time you've gone through a study, it might take you like 2 hours or something at the start, and that's fine. Like, could even take more. Like, sometimes I would go through these studies over multiple days to try and understand the study, because it's like I was at an undergraduate level trying to understand these things, and this, I think, is quite helpful. That's why I got that stack of papers. But I think it's really cool. Like, you just go through the studies and do your best to take notes and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I'm going to spend the rest of my night going through the study. I'll probably watch some anime after that. It's pretty cool. Because I try not to work all the time, but I do enjoy what I study. So, you know, that kind of is a confounding variable. Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to go. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope this makes sense. I hope this helps in some way, because I really want people to foster learning, so I think it's really important. So yeah, cool. Peace out.